Generation Y Conservative Show. I'm glad that you could join me today. Listen, this half hour is brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Now, if you're not familiar with Patriot Mobile, I would encourage you to check them out right now. Unlike other major cell phone carriers out there, they do not donate to causes that you do not agree with. Things like Planned Parenthood. What you will find them donating to is organizations that are conservative-led, like the Heritage Foundation, the NRA, and the Alliance Defending Freedom. With cell phone plans starting as low as $25 a month, how can you actually go wrong with that? You can bring your own cell phone over, or you can actually buy one of their own cell phones on their website. To get more information about that, all you have to do is call 1-800-PATRIOT, A-PATRIOT, 1-800-A-PATRIOT, sorry, and use the code Mojo50. Or you can visit patriotmobile.com/Mojo50 to waive your activation fee. Listen, we will not be silent anymore. Join me and thousands of Americans as we switch to Patriot Mobile today and let freedom ring. This half hour is also brought to you by Ministalgia. Mother's Day is not that far away, and Ministalgia has put together an awesome Mother's Day crate for her, for that mother in your life, whether that's your own mother, your wife who's a mother, your grandmother even, for crying out loud. She will enjoy a maple syrup in that basket or that crate, which is rich and naturally sweet flavor, full of healthy trace minerals, accompanied by their wild rice pancake mix for a perfect breakfast. They also have a hazelnut honey that you can put onto breads or in hot cereals, tea, or even coffee. Listen to this one. How about this blueberry jam that they include? It's great on bread, and they say it's actually pretty good on ice cream as well, which is pretty crazy to me, but I'd be willing to try it. And just for her, along with all that, she'll also enjoy a pure soy candle, which is hand-poured, lead and dye-free, with a fragrance to relax and soothe. You can actually save 10% on this Mother's Day crate or any item in the cart when you use the promo code MOM10. Orders must be received by Sunday, May 5th. That's coming up next week, to guarantee delivery for Mother's Day. Time flies, don't wait. Get your gift order today and remember to use promo code MOM10. All right, again, thank you for joining us on the Generation Y Conservative Show. Again, if you're not following along with me on Facebook, I would encourage you to do that. Just search for the Generation Y Conservative, where you can see where I post the latest articles that we're interested in, typically things that we talk about on the show. Also, the show itself gets posted there, along with other clips, including collaborations like you'll see later on with Relic Firing Line for the gun spotlights, and a couple other things as well that we'll be working on over the summer. You can also follow me on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end. And more importantly than any of those, go to YouTube and search for the Generation Y Conservative. I believe it's /Gen Y Conservative. And subscribe to the channel there, because it's really important for us to show the Google company and YouTube, which is owned by Google and everything, these organizations, that we won't be silent anymore. And I'll be real honest with you, when you search for the Generation Y Conservative, even when you click on the filter to filter out channels, I still have a hard time showing up for a lot of people. So it just goes to show you that their algorithms are really trying to keep people away from the content that conservatives like myself provide. I would encourage you to go over there and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you know when we publish content like the show itself, each individual segment, as well as gun spotlight reviews and movie reviews as well. Speaking of movie reviews, the Avengers Endgame just came out last night, and it's already starting to just absolutely demolish box office records, and will continue to do so throughout the weekend. And I'm really excited to see it. I will have a review coming up on that as soon as possible, but I have not had the opportunity to go see it. So we will talk more about that in the coming week here. We should have a review by next weekend. But listen, let's get into some kind of potpourri topics here. According to the Blaze here, it says high school newspaper wages First Amendment battle with administrators over a story about a student working in the porn industry. Pretty crazy story, and I'm trying to figure out where I fall on this as a homeschooling parent myself that pulled their kids out of school because of the ridiculousness that goes on with Common Core and everything else behind it, and especially the indoctrination of students. But it says here, students and administrators at Bear Creek High School in Stockton, California. So this is a controversy in California, which takes a lot to do, unless you're conservative. They're squaring off on whether a high school newspaper should run a story on an 18-year-old student who works in the porn industry. Students and the journalism teacher who run the paper are claiming that free speech is the issue, but the administration is more concerned that the feature is simply inappropriate for students. Think about that for a second while we go on here, because that's going to be the question of the day for you. According to this KOVR TV, Kathy Dufell, the teacher behind the school's Bruin Voice, believes that free speech should be the priority. She said, when you're on the side of free speech, you will never lose. The administration sent a letter to her in April threatening that she could be subject to termination if the story isn't sent to the administration for prior approval before the publication. She said that she opened it up and read it and then cried. We believe that this student has every right to tell her story legally and that we have every right to tell it. She said, I think a lot of people assume that she's just the porn star, but the story is actually giving her a personality. Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you want to give a porn star a personality? I think a lot of porn stars actually have a lot of personality. They take on the personality of, a pizza delivery person or a babysitter or a cheerleader. There's multiple personalities that they typically take on. In a statement provided to the outlet, the school district itself said that the district supports the rights of our students to have freedom of speech. The district has not censored nor stopped the publication of the Bruin Voice or any article originally scheduled to be published on April 23rd, which is now scheduled for May 3rd. The district is legally required to ensure that publications do not, and listen to this, violate Educational Code Section 48907. This law requires districts to prevent the publication of obscenity, defamation, and incitement. It also prohibits the publication of content that fails to meet the professional standards of English and journalism. So if the standards are upheld, right, is there any problem with it? And when it comes to the three other things here, does it contain any obscenity? Well, it can be looked through. I mean, we're talking about a profession that is obscene. So is the school district right on that? Defamation, are they ruining this person's character, right? If it's the student herself telling the story, is it really defamation? And incitement, what is it inciting to do? The only thing I can come up with in regards to incitement is other students finding out about the profession of their fellow student in the high school and hitting on her a lot more, right? So does it fall under any of that? So the school is basically arguing on that side of the code for educational purposes. On the other side, you have a free speech issue, right? In which case, I'm going to fall constitutionally on that side of the newspaper. But at the same time, is that really what our students are going to school for, is to read material like this? Now, on the other side of the argument, you have the fact that not everyone has to pick up that article and actually read it, right? So it's a very complicated issue, I believe. And should the school run it? I'll leave that to you guys. Let me know in the comments section on my Facebook page under the show video itself, or on the YouTube channel, on what you guys think about that as well. An Uber driver says that says that a driver who flat out refused to take a woman to a clinic for an abortion was fired for reasons of safety. An unnamed Uber driver reportedly dropped a 20-year-old woman off on the side of the road when he found out that she was headed to an abortion clinic for an abortion, obviously. The company said that the unnamed driver violated safety rules in dropping the female passenger off at a place other than her destination. Our community guidelines clearly lay out safety as a top priority, and any actions that threaten the safety of drivers and rider will be investigated. Dropping someone off in the middle of nowhere threatens someone's safety. The New York woman who originally shared her account of the event on Reddit said that her driver seemed to have a hunch that she was headed to an abortion clinic when he came to pick her up. My appointment was at 11:30 a.m., so at 9:58 a.m., my Uber driver arrived, and he immediately seemed uncomfortable. After about 5 minutes in the car, he asked, "Are we going to a Planned Parenthood?" I said no, because we weren't, but it set off alarm bells that he would even ask that. The destination I put in was just the name of the doctor and the address of the clinic where there was nothing that would suggest it was an abortion clinic. After a few more minutes, he asked, "Are we going to an abortion clinic?" I was shocked. I had no idea what to say, so I just remained quiet. He then said, "I know it's none of my business, but," and proceeded to mention something about his wife being pregnant, how awful that procedure was, and proceeded to explain it in graphic detail, and that there is so much they don't tell you. Okay, well, he's right about that. I'm going to take both sides on this case. In regards to the safety issue for Uber, I can understand that. He should have found a safe place to drop her off and maybe even set up another Uber driver to pick her up and get her to her destination. But as a responsibility of picking her up in the first place. But you're basically an independent contractor for Uber, working on their behalf under their rules and everything. So you have to follow their rules. But as an independent contractor, you should be able to pick up anyone that you want to and defer on picking up anyone that you don't want to drive around. Okay? So I think that both things come to play here. And I just think that this is a deeper issue than they kind of originally let on. There's certainly policy rules that you have to go by, but then there's also, as an independent contractor, as a cake baker or anything else, so if you're participating in something that violates the freedom that you have of thought, then the freedom of consciousness, should you be forced to have to do these types of things? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that as well. Aunt Becky on Full House was one of the parents that were caught up in the whole college scandal of paying off to get their kids into college. And now her and her husband, the guy behind Stussy brand, say that they didn't realize that what they were doing was illegal, according to a source. Now, this is a pretty interesting case, and I've been kind of making this point for a while. What are the standards for getting into any type of private college, right? Even community college, you have to be accepted, and they have to go by, population of how many people they can accept at a given time. They typically are saying that they're looking into the grades of the individuals that are coming into the college setting, and there's other athletic factors, scholarship factors, grant factors, and everything that go into it. But when you're actually talking about a private college experience, what did they do that was illegal? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You could talk about them bribing and everything to get their own kids into the school, into the college of their choice. But in the end, who cares? The college itself, the university, is a business. They're not there just to educate students. If they were there to do that, they would be doing it for free. The main goal is to provide a quality education at a cost. You have to, in order to receive that quality education, pay through the nose in tuition to be able to do that. If these parents that are caught up in the scandal were not only paying tuition fees, but also paying extra to get their kids involved, then as a business, providing that service to them and nothing more, where's the scandal behind that? I just don't understand that. What are they doing here that's actually illegal? It unethical? Maybe you could certainly make that case. I mean, it's sad that someone like Lori Loughlin here would be able to get her kids in over someone that's more exceptional with their student abilities and their grades and everything, especially considering the fact that some of these universities have been getting caught up in scandals themselves of limiting the amount of Asian American students that they're letting into the school district, showing racist tendencies in their enrollment process. But in this case here, if it's a university that's set up to make money, and that's exactly what they're doing in this case, then where exactly is the problem? Let's take a look at what he had to say, the founder of Home Depot, and his views on socialism right now.
Hi, everyone. I want to start by saying something politically incorrect. I love America. I do. I love America because it's the greatest country in the world. I think there are two big reasons why this country is so great. The first is our Constitution, which guarantees our freedom of speech and expression. The second is our free market system. The free market system has been the biggest creator of wealth and prosperity the world has ever known, lifting billions of people out of poverty, and far more superior than any government program could ever be. The free market is the tool that allows many to reach out and grab hold of the American dream. When I co-founded the Home Depot in 1979, I'd just been fired and I was broke. There's no other country in the world that has a system where someone under these circumstances could turn a simple idea and hard work into a company that employs more than 400,000 people and has created thousands of successful millionaires. While I'm no longer in the management of the Home Depot, I still believe in the free market enterprise system that helped build it. That's why it pains me to see people in this country glorifying socialism. Young people especially have been indoctrinated into believing that free enterprise is immoral because it enriches the greedy and depresses the poor. Even the word capitalism is not politically correct to use. But the reality is that the free market system has created the biggest middle-class population in the world. And while some may say socialism is well-intentioned, the fact is it robs people of their independence, their dignity, and their finances, leading to government dependence, suppression of ideas, and lower standards of living for those under its thumb. Free enterprise just doesn't create an environment where individuals have the opportunity to prosper, but makes charitable giving possible in the first place. It's not a random occurrence that Americans are the most charitable people in the world. It's a result of a hard work, entrepreneurship, and yes, a free market system. Because in order to give money, you need to make money. It's not an evil concept. In the last 15 years, I've donated to causes that have included medical research, autism research, advocacy for veterans causes, and even building the Georgia Aquarium. Call it whatever you like, free market, free enterprise, or even capitalism. I don't care, as long as you understand that these free market ideas have made giving back in these big ways possible. One of my favorite causes is the Job Creators Network, a group I founded to champion these free market ideals. Efforts like these are more important now than ever, as support behind socialism continues to swell in our urban areas and academia, and even in the halls of Congress. I encourage you to help us in this fight.
Okay, so that was actually Bernie Marcus who started up Home Depot originally, which the behemoth that that's become. Imagine starting up a little hardware store and building it into an empire like that. You know, we so often see those on the left and these progressives bemoaning and just belittling and demeaning those that are rich today as evil capitalists and everything, but they never recognize and acknowledge the work that was put into getting to where these people have gotten to today. They never acknowledge the fact that these individuals that are now millionaires or billionaires have employed thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people over the span of so many decades and provided job security for people and their families and have started career paths with that. You know, you can look back at any person who has a great job today that may have gotten a good start within an industry like Home Depot or McDonald's or anything like that. We think of these things as low-wage jobs, but they are building skill sets for you to enter into a workforce as an adult. I would consider something like McDonald's as an entry-level position, unless you're in the management side of things, that sets you up with people skills, interpersonal skills, and organizational skills, and how to deal with the levels of management and everything. And when you're in high school or you're going to college and you have these entry-level jobs, you know, we're talking about the fact that these types of jobs can actually pay for some students work to get their tuition paid by doing these jobs while they're going to school. Some of them do it for extra side fund money while they're growing up. Either way, it's an instilling a work ethic into these entry-level people to be able to do further things. Now, Home Depot, I think, maybe falls on the further end of an entry-level job, unless you're getting up again into the management level. But I think it is a more organized corporate structure, despite it being a hardware store and everything. But it's obviously gotten to a point now where across the country, it provides hundreds of thousands of jobs and has so in the past that have led to big careers for people. I mean, think about the amount of contractors that have come out of Home Depot settings where they get used to that kind of knowledge of the products and everything. It's just really interesting, but that's getting off topic. What we're talking about here with Bernie Marcus is Bernie Marcus versus Bernie Sanders, right? The socialist model versus the capitalist model. And Bernie here is talking about how we have become a society of demonizing the capitalist system, the free market enterprise and everything. And he gives very clear examples that are just cut and dry as far as how our society works as a capitalist society versus socialist societies, where they would tell you to give basically the majority of your money over to the government for the government to decide what is best for society instead of you as an individual, as we the people decide what is best for our society. Using these free market principles and donating freely through charity has proven to be that we as Americans donate more of our money than any other country out there towards charitable causes. And we do that freely. We are not forced to do that. We're not forced by a gun to give our money to organizations that we disagree with. We decide as Americans, as we the people, where our money should be going and the causes that we support and the people that we're trying to help. The organizations like Habitat for Humanity that go in and build homes again for people that are in distress. You have charitable organizations within churches and other religious institutions themselves that have sent more financial and actual physical aid within people that volunteer down to places like Haiti after the earthquake or anywhere else around the world with a natural disaster than our own government gives in aid to those places. And the only way that we can actually do that is by having a free market society that encourages us to not be lazy, get off our rear ends, get out there and work and make that money. Okay? And money is an incentive. And it's famously said in Atlas Shrugged, the book, that money is the root of all evil. But then Henry Reardon, the metal guy, right? The steel manufacturer, goes on a 15 to 20 page rant in a speech at a party talking about that money isn't the root of all evil. It's greed of money that's the root of all evil. That money is a symbolic, physical piece of paper that represents the blood, sweat, and tears that someone has poured their time and effort into through working to earn. And that physical representation is then passed on to another person as a physical representation of their hard-earned work and time to then buy a product or service that they're providing. Money itself, despite what the left says, is not an evil thing. We pursue money, and the pursuit can sometimes get evil. You can have crony capitalists that go on different things. But I would argue that a socialist government is actually a crony government that values the money even more so than the people themselves, because they just want to take, and figure out where they feel the money should go instead of the citizens themselves. And it's just absolutely demoralizing to a society that takes all the money and distributes it to all the people in an equal amount, in an equal way for an equal outcome instead of opportunity. And you have people that are then left with being unmotivated to get out there and work as hard as others to provide to that society, which then demoralizes those that are working hard, and the harder they work, the less they see, because the more their money goes to other individuals. So I think it's a really great organization, this Job Creators Network. They happen to be also the ones that were trolling Alexandria Ocasio Cortez with that billboard in Times Square, mocking her for getting rid of Amazon out of the city or discouraging that. So when we get back, we're going to talk. I want to follow up and get a little bit further in with Joe Rogan on his podcast, what he had with the Adam Ruins Everything guy, Adam, and talk about their battle with transgender ideas and everything. And we also have a lot more to get into. So stay tuned after these commercials. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Generation Y Conservative Show. Again, I'm your host, Chris. Listen, this half hour is brought to you by Riduzone. So Riduzone is actually America's first weight management supplement of OEA. What is OEA? Well, it's a natural metabolite of olive oil produced in the human body. Riduzone is a formulation of OEA to aid healthy weight loss. It's safe and FDA accepted. It supports healthy weight, low-calorie consumption, efficient metabolism of body fat, and it's also safe for you as well. It's a non-stimulant, naturally present in the body already. It's vegetarian, gluten-free, and non-GMO. It's patented and FDA accepted as a supplement. Now, you can start your weight loss journey with a special 30% off coupon automatically applied to your 3-bottle-a-month, 3-month supply by going to riduzone.com. That's RIDUZONE.com. And when you'll order, you'll receive that special 30% off coupon on their website. So if you're looking for a means of battling an unhealthy body weight and you're having a little bit of trouble with that, maybe this is something that you can look into and see what's going on with it. The other sponsor this half hour is actually Cat Coolers. Now, last week I was talking about a podcast that I've been listening to called Monsters, and it's about the Atlanta Monster and the Zodiac Killer. I just finished that. That was actually pretty cool. What does that have to do with coolers? Well, coolers are used for a lot of things, and serial killers can certainly find their own use for them as well. I'm just joking. But listen, if you like to go camping, if you like to go to the beach, if you like to go anywhere on vacation where you're going to haul in a bunch of food and beverages that you need to keep cool, Cat Coolers is actually a really awesome company that provides these rugged coolers that are made here in the USA. They keep ice cold for up to 7 days, which is just phenomenal. And I always joke it's available in 4 different colors, which is white, black, yellow, and camouflage. And I don't know how you get camouflage as one color there, because it's multiple colors, but that is what they offer. It's also customizable. And, there's just so many cooler companies out there right now vying for a spot as the top cooler in the industry itself. And some of those cooler companies are backing anti-Second Amendment legislation. They're getting involved in companies kind of like as what I talked about with Patriot Mobile, that some of these mobile companies are donating to the wrong things that you don't support. Well, the same thing happens in the cooler industry with some of these big ones. The big names specifically, I know, that jumped on board with Dick's Sporting Goods to back anti-Second Amendment legislation. But that's not Cat Coolers. You can actually find more out at catcoolers.com. That's CATCOOLERS.com. And use one of these codes. I'm going to throw one out here. How about Cowboy? Okay? Put in the code Cowboy for a 10% discount on your order, which is just awesome. Okay, we left off the last segment there talking about Bernie from the Home Depot that started up the whole Home Depot chain and everything. And we ran out of time, and I actually wanted to get to this Joe Rogan podcast and what he had to say with the Adam Ruins Everything guy about transgenderism. So I want you to take a listen to this, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
So you think that males should be able to compete in the women's division of weightlifting?
No, I don't necessarily.
But they can if they transition.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of stuff to break down, right? And I'm not an expert on the subject, right? So it's just sort of off the top of my head. One thing is, you're postulating a particular person who decided to transition at the age of 30, right? Mm-hmm. And they were very big and strong before, right? And they decided to transition. Now, that is a type of person that exists, right? I think over the next certainly 30 years, we're going to see, now that people are starting to understand that being trans is just a way that people are, right? They're just people who are trans, you know, and this is something that we're going to accept and support, right? You're seeing folks transition much earlier age, you know.
But then
and so if someone is you know transitioning from the age of like you know 7 years old, right, and you know working with those hormones, you know, from that age, right, they're not going to have, you know, their body situation is going to be very different than the one that you postulated, right? I also know from my trans friends that the effects that the hormones have on your body are like really profound, you know, like really profound. Like we're not to a surprising degree, right? And so, you know, look, if the question is how does a person who starts taking hormones at a particular age, right? How does their body change, and how does that affect vis-a-vis athletic performance? I don't know. We're in such new territory here, right?
Yeah, we certainly are, and we just scratched upon the idea of kids transitioning at a very early age. I mean, there's been more scientific evidence that points that if kids don't do that, then when they wanted to be trans at an early age, they just become gay men, and that there's nothing wrong with that either. There's no reason to give kids hormones, and there's no reason to decide before a person's frontal lobe is completely fully developed, which doesn't even take place till like 25. People don't know who they are. A 7-year-old, you won't even. People don't even give their 7-year-old phones. You don't let them vote. You're going to let them decide what sex they're going to be for the rest of their life.
The research that I've seen, and again, I'm not an expert on this, and you know, I'd love to. This is a conversation. This is something I'd love to talk about on our show, and I'd specifically love, you know, this is the kind of topic where I really want to make sure that I know the research and that I'm, you know, also speaking to trans folks, you know, in this conversation. But so to touch on just what I've, you know, my own experience and the research I've seen. The research I've seen is that trans kids from a young age, they are incredibly consistent in when they're expressing their gender identity.
Okay, but that's a big generalization. You're talking about a lot of human beings.
Yeah, but
that's fits this narrative by saying they're incredibly consistent. But like, if you polled these people, like, what are you talking about? Like, if you,
I mean, that's I don't have the research in front of me that I saw, so I can't like go into the details on it, but like, yeah, it was research that was surveying and tracking like trans kids who declared their identity from a young age. Did it change? The answer was generally no, it really didn't. And you know, I have a friend who has a trans kid. Don't know the kid's exact age, but you know, we're in the age range that we're talking about. And you know, he's explained that like, well, you know, my child from a very young age consistently like said, I am a girl. Like, and has never contradicted themselves, never changed their mind. And so the humane thing and the thing that he felt was good to do as a parent was to like embrace that choice on his child's part, right? And yeah, that's
embrace that choice, meaning hormonally.
I shouldn't even phrase it as a choice, like embrace that identity.
But it is a choice, right? I mean, if you're choosing to add hormones to a child's body, that's a choice.
It's a choice blockers. It's a choice on the part of the parent. It's not a choice on the part of the child to like in the same way that being gay isn't a choice. Yeah.
Okay, but if that's who they are, if they think that they're a girl, why do you have to give them hormones to make them more of a girl?
Because. I'm sorry, can you expand on the question?
It's a simple question. If you say that the child thinks it's a girl, so you're going to give the child hormones. Mm-hmm. If the child thinks it's a girl, let it be a girl. Like, you don't have, why are you adding hormones? If you're shooting hormones into a child and you're affecting the child's development, you're saying that's not a choice. That's nonsense. Of course it's a choice. You're choosing to chemically change this child's body. You're choosing to inject things into this child's body on a regular basis that are going to radically affect the physical development of their body.
Yeah.
And you're saying that this isn't a choice. Well, it's definitely a choice to do that.
So what trans people express, and again, I'm not an expert. This is from me talking to my trans friends and you know, seeing what other trans folks say, is that the experience of being trans and not receiving hormones, right, and not having the body that you identify with, the feeling of dysphoria, right, is extremely like painful and is a condition unto itself, right, and the feeling of not belonging with the body that you have, of that mismatch, right, that seems to be in the broad variety of humanity, the way that some people are born, right, where their inner self, right, the self that they are, they're like, I am a, they're not thinking they are a woman. They're like, this is the person that I am. Doesn't match the body that they have, right? And that gives them extreme distress, right? And that leads to, suicide. That leads to, other damaging behaviors, right? And the best treatment for that we know exists is to, do gender confirmation via hormones. And
you know that doesn't affect the suicide rate. The suicide rate for trans people is very high, post-op and pre-op. Really doesn't get affected by whether or not you treat them.
Well, the operation, one
question could be,
misconception is,
why is that? Is that because they're not accepted by society and we're not more loving? Could it be underlying issues that are causing them to feel this way in the first place? Like, what is it? We don't know, and I'm sure it varies widely.
Look, so all I can do is defer to the experts that I know about this, right? So, for instance, there's an author named Bryn Tannehill, who's a former military helicopter pilot. I just interviewed her for my new podcast that's coming out soon called Factually. I'm doing it on Earwolf, and it's like a long form interview podcast. And so she's one of the people who's affected by the Trump military ban on trans service people, so that's why we brought her on.
Because she's trans.
Because she's trans, yeah. And she wrote a fantastic book called Everything You Need to Know About Trans, that like she is now a researcher, right? And she went into really deep detail about like, here is all of the medical science, here's all the science about it. And so at this point in the conversation, I would say like, hey man, I just got to bone up on, on that particular, because I don't want to speak to suicide rates.
My entire concern is with children. My concern is not with young adults deciding to take steps to confirm their gender identity, who they feel they really are. I'm all for you doing whatever you want to do when you're an adult, when your mind is formed. But people change their mind. They change their opinion. They change their thoughts. There's nothing wrong with just deciding to be a gay man. There's nothing wrong with your body, as you grow and mature and develop, you growing out of these ideas. Some will and some won't. And the ones who won't, they always have the option to do something later on in life. But if you do something to hormonally block a child very, very early on, there's no turning back from that.
Well, let me say a few things to that. First of all, it's not wrong to be concerned about children, and there's a reason this is the most intense part of this conversation, and I think it's correct, right? Because we're all very concerned about children, right? But I do want to say, first of all, I don't think it's correct that trans people, if they don't receive hormones from a young age, they simply become gay men. Because I know
it happens very often.
I know trans people.
See if you can find that, because there was a big article that was written about that recently, where they were talking about whether or not gender confirmation surgery and hormone blockers on young children is ethical because of this fact.
To me, it's really telling when you see people like this Adam guy. I can get his last name. It's just Adam Conover. Okay, he has the Adam Ruins Everything show and goes into multiple things. Now, the interesting thing is, I literally just started listening to this specific podcast with him on it yesterday, and so far it's been pretty interesting. He gets into some conversations on things I disagree with, but then he also has done topics on the show apparently that people that I disagree with would probably really disagree with him on, like the trophy hunting in Africa and how that actually pays for animal conservation over there and protects the people and their lands, and that it can contribute very well, despite the fact that you may love animals, to conserving these species and from going extinct by actually killing them. That's a really weird concept to think of. And even I get a cringe a little bit when I see lions and giraffes and elephants killed. But sometimes there's a theory behind that. Sometimes the money itself in these desolate regions of Africa where the people are starving and being terrorized by some of the wild animals, that the hunting fee, which can be upwards of $500,000 for some of these for some of these animals, will sometimes be donated directly to the animal wildlife conservation, the villages and tribes right around that area to help them out financially to increase their their way of living with water access and everything. They also typically take the meat from those game that they've hunted and use every part of it to eat it and everything else for the village as well. It's just a really interesting thing. I haven't gotten to this portion of the podcast yet where they're talking about the transgenders in sports and everything, but I found this really interesting because for a guy that supposedly investigates everything for his show, for him to jump into this topic was pretty interesting. But we've also seen this on Joe Rogan's part before in regards to kind of attacking someone that's not exactly knowledgeable in all areas of that certain topic and badgering them into submission on trying to figure out what their position is with very little research behind their responses and them trying to back out of it, saying that they don't know much about the topic, but that he keeps on pushing them into it. For instance, we had Candace Owens on global warming. He just was relentless on pushing her into what her stance was on global warming. She said she didn't believe it, but she didn't have much to go on. And then it was something to look into, and he just badgered her relentlessly. He specifically worded his question to Steven Crowder, if there was one topic that you could care less about, what would it be? And he's like, I don't know, probably legalizing marijuana. Well, why wouldn't you want to legalize marijuana? And then just badgering him into not knowing the facts and what's wrong with legalizing marijuana. And Steven Crowder's like, listen, dude, I'm telling you right now, I just don't care about the topic. And you're asking me to care about the topic. I don't have enough information at my disposal that I've really looked into, and I don't really want to talk about it. But he kept on needling him, trying to get him to answer the questions on global warming, and it didn't make any sense. Now, throughout this little interview portion right here with Adam, you could clearly see that Adam, with his uhs and ums, just stuttering them, is clearly not knowledgeable on this subject matter completely, okay? He obviously needs to do a lot more research. He's certainly taking some ideas from his transgender friends on how they think about how the topic should be approached on different things. But certainly that's a very personal thing. It's a very emotional angle to this topic and not a factual angle necessarily. You know, I could argue for something that I'm passionate about, but if the facts don't line up with me, it doesn't matter if I'm passionate about it or not. In this case right here, what we have is Joe Rogan talking about transgender males competing in female sports. And you could talk all you want about how hormones, women hormones being implemented into a male body may diminish their physical athletic abilities with the drastic changes that happen. And that may be the case for a lot of these individuals. But statistically speaking, what we've been seeing over the past 2 years is former males dominating week after week in female sports, okay? So even with the female hormones diminishing the athletic ability of males, they're still breaking records. And it's asinine to think that you have women that train their whole lives for a specific sport and pour everything they have into it to be the top of their field, and barring any other circumstances would be dominating their sport as a natural-born woman, only to have someone that transitioned within the past couple of years, even as recently as a couple of months, come into the sport and annihilate them with just leaving them in the dust when it comes to these things. And sometimes not only leaving the women in the dust, but leaving them broken, literally. You have this MMA fighter, Falcon, I believe was her name, that just dominated in MMA so bad that she was breaking the skulls of the women that she was fighting against. Like, that's literally life-threatening when you get to that point. You have weightlifting where they're doing that. You have running events where there was one recent running event where 2 transgender females beat out the rest of the females. That just goes to show you, statistically speaking, in that one event, that the 2 transgender females actually dominated that sport over everyone else. And this happens all over the place. And I've said this in the past, when you have them winning at all the sports, okay, for women, and you have Caitlyn Jenner at one point winning Woman of the Year, at what point do we stop and say, obviously men can do women better than women can do women as well? Which is also exactly what's pissing off feminists across the country too, which is that they don't believe that these are natural-born women and that they can identify with the same problems that women have on their daily struggle or throughout life, and physical things that women have to deal with, or the threats that women have to deal with, that these aren't things that transgender females typically have to deal with throughout their life, and they don't know the struggle, I guess you could say, of your everyday woman. You also have a backlash from the LGBT community, where the LGBT community is saying that their base of people that make up that acronym are all fitting within that because of their sexual orientation, whereas a transgender person is a gender specification that doesn't exactly fit into that mold. So it shouldn't even be an acronym letter within the LGBT acronym itself, which is also fascinating. But even more so than that, we get into this conversation between Joe Rogan and Adam here on the absolute insanity of giving hormones to young children as young as 6 and 7, sometimes younger than that, where you're altering the physical and mental progression and puberty of adolescents that still have growing to do, and that you are stunting the growth of their mental capacity through the brain growth and their physical. And sometimes when you have these individuals who identify as one gender and then don't transition, sometimes find that they were just confused in their adolescence and grow out of that phase, or they grow up to be a gay or lesbian individual, which Joe Rogan said here is okay as well. But to put that physical stress on your body at such a young age, when doctors don't even have the research behind it to actually look and see if this is something that will just absolutely demolish the future growth and mental capacity of these individuals. There's just not enough research to be putting behind doing these transition surgeries and hormonal injections at such a young age. And we're trying to do this stuff at lightning speed. In the meantime, therapists aren't even allowed to ask deeper questions about depression and past family interactions and what their past involves as far as abuse or as I said, depression or any other symptoms. When you go to a therapist now, a therapist has to, if a person identifies as the opposite gender, entertain that option and help them along with their transition. They're not allowed to dive deeper into what is making them feel that way. As one of the, I forget what her name was, Dr. Kim, I believe it was, who showed up on Glenn Beck's podcast as well as I believe Joe Rogan's podcast, that this is a very dangerous time we're living in when they're trying to advance this agenda as fast as possible, as lightning fast, for the transgender community to make them feel comfortable, because suicide rates are so high. But as Joe Rogan pointed out here, suicide rates are high whether they go through the transition surgery or not. And that it has a lot more to do with deeper issues probably that we're just not able to discuss, or that society is unwilling to discuss. And it gets to be pretty out there. I don't know. It's a very dangerous thing that we're doing. Okay, let's go here. I'm trying to find out. Okay, while we're talking about let's go over to Twitter. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey actually went to meet up with President Trump at the Oval Office, and they discussed a lot about Twitter's policies and censoring and everything. And after that meeting, which is a whole other topic, the Twitter CEO personally called Ilhan Omar, the representative, who's a Muslim representative, to explain the policy after a Trump tweet, according to this one report. It said that the same day that, on Tuesday, the same day he met with President Trump at the White House to explain their policies, he also called Omar to explain why Twitter didn't take down a tweet from the president that she said resulted in threats against her. What was that tweet? That tweet was the actual video footage of her talking in front of the CARE organization, which is headed by convicted or at least investigated previous terrorists, okay, that represent Muslim Americans. And she said in that video that some people did something when referring to September 11th hijackers, when they actually hit the towers and killed about 3,000 people. So she said that that incited violence against her, or violent threats against her. I find this fascinating because the tweet that she calls into question is literally a tweet of her talking and saying, using her own words against her, right? At what point are we going to say that freedom of speech in this country, our First Amendment rights, are under attack here? And if this is a direct threat against the press, okay? The president himself may have posted this, but if it's the press that had posted this, and she said to Jack Dorsey of Twitter, you need to take this down because it's inciting violence against me, well, then at what point do we stop reporting anything about politics in D.C.? At what point do we stop just reporting any news out there, right? If you disagree with what someone in an interview somewhere in a newspaper said and it results in a crime against that person, isn't that the same thing, right? This is news. What she said is news. We are supposed to find out what our representatives actually feel about how they approach our policies and everything. And if we have a representative as dangerous as Ilhan Omar and her anti-Semitic remarks over and over again lately, as well as saying that 9/11 was something that happened by some people that did something, right? That is newsworthy. We have to understand how these people actually feel about these things. And I find it just absolutely fascinating that she would go on this talk about how this is a dangerous thing that the president put out there, and also that this Twitter CEO would even contemplate calling her to explain this to her about the Twitter policies. It boggles my mind sometimes. I'm finding that I'm running out of time here a lot in regards to being able to get over these topics. But listen, when we come back, we're going to continue this in regards to, we're going to talk about Trump when we get back with the White House Correspondents' dinner, telling his people not to go to it, and also Brian Stelter of CNN having a meltdown and a hissy fit over him not doing that. So we'll be right back after these commercials. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Generation Y Conservative Show. The last hour we were talking about a bunch of different topics, and we have a lot more to come, including this half hour, which we will be talking about some gun stories, as well as our firearm spotlight review this week with Relic Hunter Firing Line. We're also going to talk about some gun stories, and I promised that we would carry over Trump talking about the Correspondents' dinner. But before we get to all that, let's talk about our sponsors for this half hour, Tar River Arms. Tar River Arms is America's virtual gun store, the most convenient place in the world to shop for firearms. This is actually really cool, and it's really neat that technology is taking over for brick and mortar stores. But I do see the benefit to actually going to a brick and mortar store. But certainly, if you live in an area where you can't get to a store and you want to check out gun prices and even shop and compare, Tar River Arms may be something that you want to check out. It's America's first virtual gun store. It's making it more easy and comfortable than ever to purchase your firearm online. It's modernizing online firearm sales to accommodate the online generation, and those who prefer brick and mortar experiences can actually go through a 3D interactive experience to view and inspect the gun you are purchasing. There's weekly specials that eliminate shipping and broker fees, so all you have to do is order, you pick up, and no additional fees. There's great guns with great prices and great services, and even more importantly than that, it's veteran-owned and veteran-run. I believe you can also now do layaway as well on that. So listen, go to the website traguns.com and tell them that Chris Ford of the Generation Y Conservative Show on Mojo 50 sent you. This half hour is also brought to you by Gunbox. You can find more about them on thegunbox.com and check it out. Listen, when it comes to firearms and firearm safety, we as Second Amendment, observers, supporters, and everything need to recognize that even though there's 400 million guns and firearms in the United States, and that the majority of us, of them, are owned by responsible people, there are a lot of irresponsible people out there. And sometimes it's through no fault of their own. Sometimes it's kids in the house. Sometimes it's visitors to the house. We certainly, in our house here, try to train our kids and everything about firearm safety and that you should never touch something. We're always with them when there's a firearm present. And it's a safety issue. And sometimes that safety is taken out of your hands when storing a firearm, right? It's no longer like grandpa's glass display case or the gun rack on the back wall or anything like that where a shotgun's hanging up, right? I mean, unfortunately, it just goes to show you the times that there used to be a level of firearm safety that people had when in their homes, that these kids and everything in the house knew the responsibility to be able to not go around these firearms and do something irresponsible. But Gunbox is actually a great solution for you when it comes to those things. So there's 2 models out there right now that you should check out, but I would actually say that there's 3 because the third one's actually really cool. Gunbox 2.0 is a home gun safety box that you can put your pistols into. There's extra room for ammo and clips and everything. And it also has power ports on it as well to charge things. Well, that's just a convenience factor. It's really great. But then there's the Echo, right? This is a compact and portable one that you can take, and it has an alarm tether. Now, these things have different ways of getting into them, including fingerprint, PIN code, an RFID chip as well. When the tether on the Echo is pulled like it's trying to be moved away from its location, an alarm will go off. They're really neat, and it's something that you need to consider when you have a firearm, that it's safely and securely put away, that you can access it in an instant if need be for actual protection. And that's what these things provide, which is you can open this with an RFID chip immediately, or a fingerprint. You just press and it's open for you, okay? I would encourage you to check out all those. Just go to thegunbox.com. As I had mentioned before, we had left off the last half hour talking about President Trump. He's actually telling the members of his administration to skip the White House Correspondents' dinner, which is always great if you're a Democrat president, right? Because they just kiss your rear end all the time and talk about how great you are and how, term limits for the president should be taken away because you should be the ruler over the country and a tyrant. Well, not tyrant specifically. They wouldn't say that. But it says here, President Trump has reportedly been ordering members of his administration not to attend the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. He said, while Trump has never attended a Correspondents' Dinner while in office, members of his administration have gone. Last year, comedian, and I say that with reservation because I think that she has one of the most annoying voices I've ever heard, and I don't find her to be funny at all, Michelle Wolf mocked Press Secretary Sarah Sanders for burning facts and using, quote, that ash to create the perfect smoky eye, Like maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. After the dinner, CNN reporter Laura Jarrett, the daughter of Obama's senior advisor Valerie Jarrett, described Wolf's comments to Sanders as uncomfortable, brutal, and cringeworthy, I think, at best. So even the left sometimes says that. The year before this incident, White House officials had voluntarily boycotted the dinner out of support for Trump. On April 30th, 2018, Trump tweeted that the dinner was, quote, a total disaster and embarrassment to our great country. This year, rather than have another comedian at the dinner, as has been tradition, the White House Correspondents Association will have presidential historian Ron Chernow speak. Chernow has written a number of well-respected historical books, including one on former President Ulysses B. Grant and the biography of Alexander Hamilton that inspired Lin-Manuel Miranda's, see, I said it better than Nancy Pelosi, Broadway musical. So this is just a dog and pony show. I think that was put on by, wasn't it Woodrow Wilson or something like that, that wanted to bring in the press into the White House to get, like, schmooze them and then get them on his side. The White House Correspondents' Dinner should never exist. The press and our politicians should be completely separate so that the press can report to us and criticize both sides of the aisle based on what they're doing to report to the American citizens as a watchdog in D.C. for the American citizens to vote accordingly in every single election. Instead, things like the White House Correspondents' Dinner has turned our watchdogs into lapdogs. And now the media is so biased that people like Brian Stelter are getting involved. And so he, at CNN, is bemoaning the fact that President Trump is ditching the White House Correspondents' Dinner and saying that it's an attack against the media. This guy, doesn't he look like he's always trying to take a poop or something? He's like, you know? On the heels of President Trump reportedly telling his administration to skip the insufferable liberal love fest, this is on the Blaze, by the way, Brian Stelter moaned that the Trump is not attending the annual event as it is an attack against the media. It says hosts of the network's reliable sources. Yeah, right. How could they even hypocritically put that onto a network? Said on Tuesday and listened to host Brooke Baldwin's introductory pitch. Say what you will about the press. This is an event that honors the First Amendment. Yeah, right. As you might expect, Stelter knocked that softball toss for extra bases with responding by saying, yes, that's what it's about. It's an awards dinner and a fundraiser. In the past, presidents have always shown up, even if they were angry at the press at any given time. And importantly, it's useful for White House aides to schmooze with reporters. No, it's not important for that, Brian, all right? That's not what they're supposed to be doing. There's no schmoozing. That's where you're wrong on this whole thing, is we are not supposed to have politicians and news people in bed with each other. Okay? That's where stories get lost. Facts get swept under the carpet because of stupid crap like this. You believe you're supposed to be schmoozed. You believe you're supposed to have your rear end kissed. Okay? You know, Stelter, you are the definition of what is wrong with the media right now. It's helpful for us to get to know our sources. Yeah, a little too intimately. There's some value in these sorts of festive events, but it is, as you said, another example of a tradition at least being put on pause during the Trump age. It shouldn't be put on pause. It should be demolished. It should be a wrecking ball should come through there and take down that event every single year so that it doesn't happen anymore. You know, get your sources the legitimate way instead of sleeping your way around D.C. with reporters to actually get the facts. On to a couple more gun stories here. So this is according to the Blaze as well. Convenience store clerk uses deadly force against a robber. Now he's being criminally charged. It says in Richmond, Virginia, convenience store clerk is facing criminal charges after police say he shot and killed a man who robbed the store where he worked. I'll take a moment for you to pray for this individual who was stupid enough to do that. According to Richmond Times-Dispatch, Jeremy Simmons, who is 31, is facing charges of voluntary manslaughter and discharging a firearm in a public place after using deadly force to stop a man who robbed the store where he worked. Police say that around 3 a.m. on February 2nd, 43-year-old Joseph Harris robbed the store where Simmons worked. In response, Simmons drew his personal firearm and began shooting at Harris, who quickly fled the store. Simmons then chased Harris out of the store and fired several more shots. During the robbery, Simmons fired several shots at Harris inside the store from his personal handgun, and Simmons pursued Harris outside the store and fired several more shots as Harris fled the scene, according to police. Police discovered Harris's body on a nearby street shortly before 8 a.m. later that morning. A Richmond grand jury formally indicted Simmons on the manslaughter and discharging of firearms charges this week. So, yeah, this guy tried robbing the store. So there's some gray area here. But I think you need to play out circumstances in your head, right? This guy tried to rob the store. I believe that Simmons here had every right to defend himself and the store by discharging his personal weapon, even if it is in a public space, because who knows how that could have gone down. It could have gone very wrong, and he could have ended up dead. The gray area is where the suspect actually ran out of the store and down the street, and Simmons followed him. Now, thinking this through and thinking about the process of how that actually happens, my thought process is, who's to say that this individual wouldn't have gone home to get a firearm and, ambush this guy in the store for firing at him in the first place, right? Which he had every right to defend himself in the store. So, I don't know. It's a very murky line, isn't it, in regards to vigilante justice and everything. Personally, the guy isn't going to be missed. That's for damn sure. Maybe by some other individuals, but we're talking about a criminal here who made the mistake of going up against a citizen that was legally carrying and doing something very illegal, by the way, that could have ended with the other guy being dead. So, who are we trying to defend here? The guy that tried robbing a store, or the individual who took it upon himself to do something in a matter of time that the police couldn't have responded appropriately to? Okay? I'll leave that up to you. I think most of my audience would know, or at least agree with me on that. Another firearm story here. Florida Senate approves bill to arm school teachers. The Florida State Senate has passed a bill that would allow for school teachers to be armed in classrooms. Now, that headline will cause a lot of controversy, but let's hear what it actually had to say. This bill, SB 7030, was put forward after the deadly massacre in February of 2018 at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Teachers would still have to, listen closely, volunteer and be trained in order to carry weapons on school property. This bill would not authorize teachers to carry guns to school without going through the training process. Now, this is where all this controversy typically picks up when you see headlines like this one, okay? Florida Senate approves bill to arm school teachers. Now, a liberal, progressive person, especially liberal teachers that I personally know and have interactions with, will see that headline and assume very naively and ignorantly that the Florida State Senate has now approved measures to go into every single school and arm every single teacher with a firearm and say, here you go, good luck with everything, hope you know how to use a firearm, and defend our students if it comes down to that. It's the most asinine argument, and it's typically thrown into the gun debate when we're talking about how to best attack school safety, okay? How do we approach that? Metal detectors, lockdown mechanisms, arming teachers, having security on campus, having police officers on campus, having locking mechanisms on classroom doors, having different types of bulletproof glass installed and everything. Having kind of bug out rooms, I guess you could say, installed in certain hallways. There's multiple different ways of going about it. One thing is for damn sure, though. Having gun-free zone signs on school property hasn't been doing the trick for the United States or anywhere else in the world. So, when we're having this argument with these individuals on the left, especially teachers on the left, that we're now arming teachers left and right and just giving them, carte blanche to go out there and get these things done in regards to securing the school and students and everything, they're wrong. It's a straw man argument that they set up in regards to how we would go about arming teachers. What they're saying here is if a teacher, A, volunteers, they'll be considered. In order to be considered, you have to be trained. So now you have to go through training and volunteer to actually carry a firearm. I can tell you one thing. My wife has so many different types of holsters. No one ever knows where she's carrying. She could, with all the holsters she has, she could probably carry about 7 to 9 pistols on her persons without you ever seeing it. And she doesn't wear loose, baggy clothing like a skater or anything either. But that being said, the biggest concern I think that most teachers have is even having a firearm on their person is a threat to the students in case a student overthrows them to get the firearm and start shooting. And again, this is another asinine comment from people that refuse to look into the facts and do any investigating into how these things typically are accomplished, right? Conceal carry, you can conceal carry and no one would ever know. No one, first of all, needs to know who has volunteered or taken the training to carry a firearm. And when you do carry a firearm, you don't need to announce to the class, students, today I would like you to know that I am starting to carry a firearm on me to protect you. It's a crapshoot. It's a gamble, which is exactly better odds, gambling, on if there's teachers armed in a school. It's a better chance that I would like to gamble on than going into a school that has a sign that says gun-free zone, knowing that there's no guns on the premises. I would rather take my chances. The lotto chances are much better of myself and my kids not getting shot on a campus where volunteer teachers are allowed to carry firearms, okay? So to me, this is a step in the right direction, okay? You're not going to eliminate firearms in this country. And those that think that you can are the ones without the firearms who want a civil war with the people with firearms. How do you think that's going to end? Okay? But it's amazing to me the arguments that you hear from the ignorant on these topics when it comes to firearms from people that refuse to do any investigating beyond the fact that they say that firearms kill people. Well, they do. And there's a reason for that. It's to protect people. And all we're seeing across the world right now is in places where they've actually banned guns is a decrease in gun homicides, which is understandable when there's less guns around. But what they don't tell you and what you have to read into these statistics is that the overall homicide rate has increased for these countries because now they're killing with knives. The freaking London mayor, I think it was talking about putting GPS units onto their knives and taking away knives now as well, including kitchen knives and stuff like that. It's beyond ridiculous at this point that they don't understand that if an evil person wants to commit an evil act, they will do so, turning any ordinary object into an evil instrument to do their bidding and accomplish their goal of hurting people. I could take this laptop and swing it over someone's head and knock them clear across the room with it, a young kid or something, and kill them that way with this laptop. Are we going to ban laptops? It's ridiculous what these people think. Well, listen, up next here, we're going to take a look at Relic Hunter Firing Line and the Generation Y Conservative Show's spotlight review of a CZ pistol. Now that we're talking about firearms here, these Florida teachers may want to look into the CZ pistol because it's amazing. So here is the video for that. Take a look.
Hi, this is Gerard with Relic Hunter Firing Line. Today we're going to look at and shoot the CZ P10C. It's the size of a Glock 19, made in the Czech Republic, and this model has night sights that we're looking at, and it's just an incredible gun. with a great price and just an awesome trigger. I think the CZ company has been catching on in recent years, and this firearm comes with 2 17-round magazines.
All right, so this is Josh. This is just another one of the employees here at Relic Hunter. So if you come in, you can always ask him questions as well. Today, we're actually going to be shooting his firearm that we took a look at another version of outside in the store. So I'm going to have Josh explain to you what the gun is and the modifications that he's done to his own gun, so you could get an idea of the different types of things that you could do with it if you come in and actually talk to someone like Josh. So Josh, go ahead and tell me about yours.
Right, so this is CZ P10C. I bought it here in the shop. Right when they came in, I saw the gun, checked it out. I tri-fired the trigger. I was like, I need this gun. Awesome. It's got a very, very smooth trigger. Modifications I've done to it, I have a CZ custom flared magwell here. With the magazine, I got a base pad that puts another round in, so I get another round in the chamber.
Okay.
O-Light PL2 Valkyrie, the light at the bottom here. And the good thing about this is it comes off very easy. That's it, it's off. And it's very easy. Bam, bam, it's back on, just like that. Here I have the CZ, not the CZ custom threaded barrel, which is a CZ factory component. The CZ P07s we have in the shop also have that, and we have some P10Cs that already are threaded. And then on here is a primary machining stealth compensator, helps lower the recoil to get those follow-up shots a lot faster.
Awesome. Okay. All right, let's take a look at it then. Okay.
Awesome.
This actually shows how amazing this firearm is, because perfectly on the head when we were both firing at the head, and everything was within the orange on the body here. Like, there are no outside shots on this at all.
Yes, and the reason why I shot a little faster was to show a lot of guns with follow-up shots, you'll shoot twice in a row, you'll get one down here and one up here.
Yep.
These follow-up shots were right in the same area. It's real fast because that trigger is so, it's like butter. The reset's right there, it comes right back. It's very easy to shoot. Now,
one thing that people wouldn't have seen on camera is you and I had a conversation out in the shop about that you're a big fan of CZ.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have taken a liking to the brand itself, and have said that they're just on the level with competing against other manufacturers like Glock and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything specifically you want to point out about CZ at all?
They're doing a lot. They used to just make hammer-fired pistols, but now they're doing a lot with the striker-fired market. With the Gen 1 of the P10C, the rear plate here, it didn't have, there's a cutout here.
Okay.
It didn't have that, and they had problems with it coming off, actually, when you would shoot it. But now with this, the Gen 2, and that's all we have here are the new Gen 2 ones, they made a notch there that actually secures that striker plate on. And it's just because they're not, I guess they don't know how to make striker guns at first, and they're evolving, and their market goes from the sportsman, the clay, the skeet shooter, the hunter, and then there's also the tactical side of things, especially this is more of a tactical weapon, as well as the scorpions and whatnot like that. They have a big market with a lot of Eastern European military contracts.
Okay, all right, thank you very much for showing us.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back from the commercial break here, we're going to talk more about politics, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the last half hour here of the Generation Y Conservative Show. Again, my name is Chris. Look us up on social media. Search for the Generation Y Conservative on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And follow along and subscribe where possible so we can interact with each other. I would appreciate that. Listen, this half hour is actually brought to you by the Doc Thompson Health Challenge. It was created to help his fellow host at the time, Brad Staggs, improve his health. It was created as a challenge that Doc Thompson would be proud of and support. Doc Thompson was a healthy kind of guy. He liked and enjoyed jogging, which was one of the things that unfortunately brought him to his death there. The challenge brings the Mojo 5-0 community together for a common cause, which is to heal, survive, and thrive. It's a 90-day challenge to make healthier lifestyle choices. Now, the challenge itself started on May 4th of this year, but that should not stop you from participating in this and starting it right now, okay? There's no better time to get healthy than the present. It's hosted by Gwen Rich, who's a health advocate and founder of the Rich Solution. And it focuses on 8 obstacles everyone needs to conquer for their optimal health. That includes diet, mental attitude, exercise, sleep, stress, environmental toxins, community, and emotional health. All very, very important things that go into it. Most of it is mental stuff. Getting over yourself, getting over the stress of everyday life in order to focus on your physical health. Now, you can find this at www.therichsolution.com. That's Rich, R-I-C-H, therichsolution.com. This half hour is also brought to you by Atrantil, okay? All you have to do, listen, go to lovemytummy.com/mojo or //spoonie. Here's the offer. Atrantil is a 90 capsule box. It's normally about $39.95 per box. But when you buy 3 boxes with our coupon code, you get 3 months supply of bloating and digestive relief for only $99, which is a $20 savings on 3 boxes of Atrantil. It's the world's first ever over-the-counter proven solution for bloating. Bloating sucks. It hurts. It's developed by a board-certified gastroenterologist, Ken Brown. It wasn't by that. But it's safe for daily use. It's 100% natural polyphenols designed to address bloating problems where they begin and not just treat a symptom. It's not a probiotic, not an antibiotic. It's a blend of polyphenols that's desired by your body to work as a gut regulator and end methane, and then function as a postbiotic to benefit your overall health. It's also the world's only digestive aid that contains K-Braco, Colorado, okay? For you athletes, that's the world's only bloating remedy that is NSF certified for sport. Why would you take this? Well, if you ever get bloated after eating, if you get abdominal distension and tightness, if you feel tired and heavy after eating a meal, and also if you have unpredictable bathroom habits with constipation or even sporadic diarrhea, which is not fun. Symptoms that look like IBS. These are reasons why you would want to go and try taking this as soon as possible. Go to lovemytummy.com/mojo or lovemytummy.com/spoonie. We're going over some politics earlier today and everything, but we're going to end with some of these politicians that one of my friends posted on my one post the other day in regards to Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. Why are we even giving this woman any attention anymore? And I get it. You know, why do we keep on propping her up as an example of the left and giving her the media attention that she's obviously craving? But it's also the reason why we're doing it. You know, we have to spotlight the type of people that progressives put up as the intelligent ones to represent us in our politics that turn out to be these insufferable just... How is it that AOC, it boggles my mind, how is it that AOC is a representative in our government when she doesn't, these memes that float around, it drives you crazy that she would be this ignorant and dumb on things. And yet she proves almost daily that it's much worse than that. Just when you think she's done the dumbest thing possible, she goes and does something even dumber the next day. And her policies are so out of whack with American society that she actually believes she can get most of these things and policies paid for by just taxing everyone at like 100%. Even at 100%, most of these Democrats that are front runners right now for the running for president on the Democratic side, or those like AOC or Ilhan Omar and other representatives in Congress, they believe that they can get their policies accomplished. And when you look at the numbers, even taxing people 100% of their income, they still can't achieve it. Sometimes some of their policies would require more money that's available in the world. And is it the fact that these people maybe believe that you could just keep on printing money and that it has no effect, that by printing more money, it adds to the money pile, and that doesn't have a detrimental effect on the valuation of money and the supply and demand of where it actually ties into world economics and how much the dollar actually becomes worth, and that services and products actually then become more expensive as the value of the dollar decreases. I think that sounds a little too complicated for AOC, if you ask me. But again, she's been suffering from social media gaffes left and right. She was actually she was criticized for a photo of a supposed, quote, GOP politician who was actually a Democrat, one of her own, right? So it says one of Representative Alexandria Ocasio Cortez's tweets seemed to backfire on Thursday when she tried attacking Republicans over a picture of a politician who stood next to a cardboard cutout of her, AOC. She said in the tweet, GOP, let's pose our older male members next to cardboard cutouts of young female legislators, she tweeted. Her tweet included a post from the Republican Party of Kentucky. However, the politician pictured was Democratic Representative John Yarmouth of Kentucky, not a Republican as she claimed. Ocasio-Cortez later deleted the tweet, but not before critics pointed out the gaffe on Twitter. So, Ryan Saavedra, Socialist Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thinks Representative John Yarmouth is a Republican member of Congress. It literally says in the tweet that she is quoting that Yarmouth is a Democrat. AOC doesn't even know who her Democrat colleagues are in Congress. How embarrassing. Another one here says, and they call you crazy? Caleb Hull. In this tweet, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shows she has no idea who John Yarmouth even is. He's a Kentucky Democrat who just happens to be the chair of the House Budget Committee. Major yikes. First grade readers are, in fact, the worst. This is in response to one of her other tweets. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, I swear, it's like we're back to encouraging first grade readers when it comes to some of these pundits. But she is the one that falls under attack here. Now, while we stay with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's also right now advocating to give prisoners back their voting rights. Okay? It says on Thursday she voiced her support for giving incarcerated felons voting rights while warning opponents they risked looking completely and utterly out of touch with reality of our prison system. She also said to avoid looking completely and utterly out of touch with the reality of our prison system, instead of asking, should the Boston bomber have the right to vote, try, should a nonviolent person stopped with a dime bag lose the right to vote? Because that question reflects way more people. Okay, but just like the border situation, even though not every Mexican that crosses the border is a criminal, some of them are. So there needs to be processes put into place on who gets into the border. Now, in regards to who votes from prison, when you enter that cell, you have forfeited your rights as a citizen to participate in society because you did something that was illegal, knowingly doing something that was illegal, okay? These people don't go to prison just because they happen to get caught up in something that they didn't understand. Most of these hardened criminals in prison versus jail have gone there for crimes that they have forfeited their rights to participate in society as far as we're concerned. That's why we throw them behind bars. Senator Bernie Sanders sparked a national discussion about voting rights for felons in jail during a CNN town hall last week as well. The 2020 presidential candidate said that all prisoners, including domestic terrorists such as the Boston bomber, should retain the right to vote. He said, I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Well, right off the bat, he's wrong. It's a republic, a democratic republic. Yes, even for terrible people, because once you start chipping away, you're running down a slippery slope. I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy, which just goes to show you that the Democrats want even the guilty criminals to vote for them as well. Although Sanders previously called for felon voting rights, the comments on Monday drew national attention and backlash. Some candidates, including former Representative Beto O'Rourke, of Texas and former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro have said only nonviolent offenders should be able to vote while in prison. Wow. But then again, when it comes to Representative Beto O'Rourke, we never really know what his position is because there's nothing on his website stating what he actually stands for. And he has literally said that he will be whatever the voters want him to be. So who knows what he says. Ocasio Cortez did not immediately respond to a request for clarification on whether she was backing voting rights for all felons or just nonviolent ones. But her language clearly says here, should the Boston, instead of asking, should the Boston bomber have the right to vote, try, should a nonviolent person stopped with a dime bag lose the right to vote? Because that question reflects way more people. So in essence there, what she's saying is all felons should have the right to vote, but the majority of the ones that should have the right to vote are ones that have done something nonviolent. But it doesn't ever disclude someone like the Boston bomber. Now, you would think that that those on the left would actually be supporting Alexandria Ocasio Cortez and Bernie Sanders in this. I have to take a deep breath here because this is kind of shocking. One of the people that actually came out against Bernie Sanders and the right for felons to be able to vote. Listen to this. Left-winger Cher flips out at Democrat frontrunner Bernie Sanders for saying felons should be able to vote from jail. All right, here we go. Says here, actress and singer Cher has no problem speaking her mind, and by all accounts, she's no fan of President Trump or conservatives in general, but lately Cher has been tweeting some very un-Cher-like things. For instance, she put, will Trump really do what he just said he would? Will he flood my state with thousands of rapists and murderers? His words as a punishment? What kind of president is he? What kind of man is he? He's the newest dictator, and he wants his troops to put up internment camps. So this is specifically in regards to sanctuary cities and states. You know, that basic language right there is welcoming to illegal immigrants. And what he said is, okay, all the ones that we catch, we'll throw into your state. And if we catch them, we'll keep on throwing them back in. But that started pissing off people because they obviously don't want them in their state. They know what comes with it. She followed that tweet up with, I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000 plus citizens who live on the streets, people who live below poverty line and hungry? If my state can't take care of its own, many are vets. How can it take care of more? Welcome to the damn conversation. Where have you been, right? All these people that argue against us, that is the point. That is the point I've been making over and over again. Where is Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters for our American vets and the homeless population here in the United States of actual citizens and taking care of those people before we start taking care of people that don't even belong here, that haven't gone through the process, that have jumped the line and done something illegal as soon as they enter the country? The question isn't, are these illegal immigrants criminals? The answer to that question is yes. It's a matter of to what degree, and do they have criminal past? Because the action of entering the country illegally is a crime in and of itself, making those people criminals. Now, if you're a child in tow that's being brought over without the ability to make that decision for yourself, that's a little bit different of a story. But every adult that passes that border without going through the legal process is a criminal. There's no other way around it. You have entered illegally, you are a criminal. We're off topic, I'm sorry. Anyway, this is her tweet to Bernie Sanders. It says, does Bernie Sanders really believe people in prison who are murderers, rapists, child molesters, Boston bombers still deserve the right to vote? Yeah, he does. And even Cher is flipping out on that. It's almost like portions of society are starting to wake up a little bit, even on the left. You'd be shocked at how many people I actually talk to that are my clients, hundreds of clients that I've had in this one area here in Pennsylvania that are lifelong Democrats that voted for Trump because they want to change. They believe that he's an honest politician. As far as honesty is concerned, he says what's on his mind and just says it, right? Which is, I think, what a lot of people are looking for. There's even one country right now, and you can correct me on where exactly it is, but there was a guy, an actor, who played the president on a TV show in the country who ran against the actual president for a re-election and won with a 75% to 24% vote margin. This actor got in, right? Which just goes to show you politics around the world are just driving people crazy, especially with the lies and corruption and everything. And people are starving for changes because the world's a screwed up place. And if you don't have hardened people out there trying to push the best option instead of catering to the corrupt, then we keep on ending up in horrible positions, which is why they want to get those people out of there. How about this? Elizabeth Warren, my word, this woman is, sending up smoke signals, pun intended, like no other about the insanity that she represents on the left. This is according to the New York Times. Elizabeth Warren's higher education plan, cancel student debt and eliminate tuition. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts who has structured her presidential campaign around a steady unveiling of disruptive policy ideas, on Monday proposed her biggest one yet, a $1.25 trillion plan to reshape higher education by canceling most student loan debt and eliminating tuition at every public college. Her sweeping plan has several planks. She would pay for it with revenue generated by her proposed, guess, increase in taxes for America's most wealthiest families and corporations. Why is it the solution to every problem for a Democrat is to raise taxes and throw money at it, when money obviously hasn't solved everything? But I think it's the greed of money in their power, exactly what they're going for, what we talked about earlier. In addition to eliminating undergraduate tuition at public colleges and universities, she would expand federal grants to help students with non-tuition expenses and create a $50 billion fund to support historically black colleges and universities. Equality, obviously. And I believe there's $50 billion in there for Asian Americans and $50 billion in there for Native Americans and $50 billion in there for, what's that last one? The other one. Oh, Hispanic Americans and, gosh, it feels like I'm missing something. Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American. I feel like there's one more in there to go through with this. But as long as we get those main ones, equality reigns in the end, right? She would also eliminate up to $50,000 in student loan debt for every person with a household income of less than $100,000. Borrowers who make between $100,000 and $250,000 would have a portion of their debt forgiven. This touches people's lives, Miss Warren said in an interview. It's interesting that they put Miss Warren. She is married. She introduced her husband in that beer video in her kitchen. This is a chance to talk about what's broken and how we fix it. This is the American dream. Yeah, but Representative Dan Crenshaw, future president of the United States, if we have anything to do about it, had something to say about that. Elizabeth Warren also kind of tweeted out about that. She said in a tweet, student loan debt is crushing millions of families. That's why I'm calling for something truly transformational. Universal free college and the cancellation of debt for more than 95% of Americans with student loan debt. Read all about it here, and she gave a link. Representative Dan Crenshaw had a little bit of information for her. He said loan forgiveness for people making up to $250,000. This plan effectively asks all Americans, many of whom never got a degree, to give their tax dollars to people who chose to take out a student loan so that they could get a job paying $250,000 a year. Terribly clumsy and unfair policy. Well, yes, absolutely it is. Which leads us to my conservative reflection for the day. Let's talk about higher education today, okay? And what's going on with the Democratic platform of free colleges and what's been happening over the past decade or so with people that step up like Mike Rowe to testify in front of Congress on the importance of college. You know, Mike Rowe has gone in front of Congress to talk about the importance of pushing trade schools beyond white-collar opportunities within college and university settings that people are typically pushed into in their high school settings. Now, if you jump back to high school, what you have is college prepping and kind of funneling students towards a college lifestyle in order to get a white-collar job. But what is left out is the trades in trade schools like plumbing and mechanical work and things of that nature. And now what we've seen over the last couple decades is a lesser and lesser amount of people entering the trades for those things like plumbing and everything. And there's a shortage of them, okay? And when there's a shortage of those and people are begging for those people to bring up on the trades, what you actually have is a stark contrast with what's happening in the white-collar world. An abundance of doctors and nurses, an abundance of other people that just can't find jobs because there's none available. But there's a bunch of jobs available in the trade industry. When you have a shortage and a shortage of resources, in this case being people, and a high demand for those trades, what you have is this balance in which the trade is able to negotiate their prices better than you would in any other industry right now. So plumbers can make more than doctors can in a lot of cases, because if there's a shortage and they're the only ones available, they get to set their own prices. But we don't have anyone in the high school settings really pushing for people to go to the vo-tech schools or the trade universities after their high school experience and everything. But what we have here is actually talks by the Democratic left right now to push students into college settings for free, so the colleges wouldn't, well, I guess they would still be making money, but it would all be on the back of the taxpayers. Pushing high schoolers into college settings, whether they want to or not, and making it free. At which point, think about it this way. People that go to college don't even necessarily know what they want to go for, right? But if you go to college and you can't grasp what's going on and what you want to do with your life, and you keep on failing classes and continue to being a student, right? Then every generation that starts up coming behind you to get into college, you're taking up a seat for them, okay? Universities can only handle so many until we get to a point where, you know, it's all digitized, which I think is the future of where the bubble's going to be. Is it's going to be an educational bubble. We pour so much money as universities and college settings into the campuses themselves and the dormitory life and the student activity life and everything. There's so much money that goes into the stadiums and the upkeep of the college campuses and everything to keep students coming and going to the university, that the tuition prices keep on going up. They're astronomical now to get a degree. And the colleges are making bank on all these things. But in the meantime, the population can't keep up with the type of cost that's associated with that. So just like you would if you were grocery shopping and you didn't have the budget to go to your average grocery chain, you might go to a place like Aldi's to shop for your food at a lesser price for brands that are typically made by the same name brands, but under a different name at a lower price, right? The same thing happens with colleges. You're looking to get a degree, and maybe your family's in a hard place and you can't afford the tuition or anything, or you're paying for it yourself and you can't afford it. You're going to look for alternatives. And one of those alternatives coming up right now is digital universities, the online universities and everything, which are going to save you a boatload of money. Not only do you get your education at home, you do it on your own time, you're able to work during it, you're able to stay at home and not pay the expenses of dormitory life and paying for food on campus and student activities, going out and partying. I mean, it really diminishes all that stuff, and you can get your education at home and then get right into the workforce. Heck, you could even be in the workforce and go to college while doing that type of stuff. So the next bubble to collapse is really going to be the educational bubble. Once we reach this point where college campuses are oversaturated with people and the tuition is too high that people can't afford it, and then those numbers start dwindling off as far as who's actually attending on campus versus those going to the online universities. But in the meantime, we have Democratic politicians shooting for free colleges, increasing all of our taxes, and providing college to people that don't even want to go to college, and forgiving student loan debt. Who's going to take the brunt of that responsibility then? That falls on the university to get that money that they were owed, right? Again, it's probably going to be a debt forgiveness program that is based off of an increase in taxes to all of us to pay off the obligations that people signed up for themselves willingly prior to us getting involved. So now you're talking about people that signed a contract with the university saying, I will pay these expenses, and then passing that buck on to the taxpayers who didn't have anything to do with that contract and saying, oh, yeah, we're really sorry. Now, instead of that, we're going to put this on the back of you guys to actually pay for their tuition that they signed saying that they would pay. The Democratic platform is absolutely asinine in what they are asking for and what they think that they can accomplish with the American dollar by putting the strain on the American voter. And the only solution that the Democrats ever have to problems is by going and increasing your taxes. There is no creative way. There's no creative thinking, because there's no thinking at all on the part of the left to come up with solutions to these problems. And they refuse to sit down with Republicans on the other side of the aisle and try to come up with an amicable way to attack these problems in our country by joining forces together and doing what's right, by doing what is best. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today to the Generation Y Conservative Show. I'll catch you next week on Sundays starting at 5 until 7 p.m. In the meantime, have a great night, and God bless America.